There's enough fencing in the west that could circle the equator 24 times. So there's a lot out there. The National Fish and Wildlife Foundation has offered us a lot of funding and provided us a lot of funding to do this work. And so my job is to mobilize volunteers, work with our agency partners like the Bureau of Land Management, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and the U.S. Forest Service to identify fencing and prioritize it based on its overlap with high priority habitat, especially for elk, deer, and pronghorn, but also any fencing that's close to grouse leks. My name is Brittany Parker. I go by Britt, and I work for Backcountry Hunters and Anglers as their Habitat Stewardship Coordinator for the state of Colorado.
So Backcountry Hunters and Anglers was formed around a campfire back in 2004. A group of guys were sitting around the fire and talking about how there really wasn't yet a sportsman organization out there that spoke up for that public land hunter and angler, that do-it-yourself person that hunted all things and really valued that sense of solitude and challenge and reward that our wild public lands and waters provide. And so that group of guys took it upon themselves to start this 501c3 nonprofit organization. We are a membership-based organization, roughly 30,000 members strong. And we are really dedicated to serving as that voice for our public lands and waters. We do that by working on public access, making sure that you have quality public access to your public lands, by helping advance habitat conservation measures, both on the ground as well as DC and on policy. And then we also work to safeguard our fair chase hunting traditions.
I'm here in Gunnison, Colorado for the Colorado Public Lands Day weekend bash celebration that we're hosting called Beers, Bands, and Barbed Wire Strands.
A bunch of bars over there.
We got some really awesome vendors, some really big, great companies. I'm sure like with social media and stuff like that, the word got out there pretty far. So it'll be cool to see who all comes to this event and participates, for sure.
We've been volunteering here with CPW for the last few years to pull out expired fencing. And it's been a great couple of years working with them to remove fencing. It helps wildlife in the migration corridors. And so a couple years ago, BHA really started making a huge push to get as much fencing as we can. And so the thought was, let's put on one big party.
We've got a wild game potluck going on where people brought their harvest from previous seasons and are willing to share it with this community. And we're all hanging out, listening to music, just enjoying this beautiful night here in Gunnison, Colorado, and just getting ready for our big day of pulling fence tomorrow morning.
So Gunnison Basin is a pretty heavy snowfall area. All the wildlife kind of funnels down to the bottom of what's called the Gunnison Basin, which is kind of basically a bowl here in Gunnison, Colorado, and it's pretty harsh on the wildlife in the winter. So the hunters and volunteers this weekend are here to remove fence to make the habitat where they winter easier on them.
Certainly humans need some fencing infrastructure in different situations to accommodate our land uses. In instances where fences are antiquated, fallen down, or no longer needed on the landscape, we're always looking for those opportunities from a wildlife conservation standpoint to minimize the miles of fence across the landscape to better wildlife and wildlife movement throughout their annual cycle.
Fences on the landscape they're an impediment to wildlife. It's an obstacle they have to overcome. A lot of times if the bottom wire is too low, the young of the year, the calves and the fawns, they can't figure a way to get through it, and they can often get separated. It becomes a migration barrier.
Fence in general is something that impairs the well-being of big game across the landscape, but in these high concentration areas it it makes a greater impact. This is a high concentration winter range. Actually, it is closed from December 1st to April 31st every year to all human impact. And so removing this fence in this particular corridor is significant for the well-being of the wintering big game. The Gunnison sage grouse actually get hung up in the fence as well. They'll fly through it. So there's a number of reasons that it's good to get this out of here. And so, yeah, it's mostly to salvage some lives.
We reached out to all of our members across the state and even across the country and partnered up with other organizations, local organizations and some national organizations like Hunters of Color and the Gunnison Wildlife Association and High Country Conservation Advocates and the Gunnison Conservation District. 1% for Gunnison County Open Space also has been a big contributor to this event, reaching out to them, to other organizations even outside of the hunting community, and also having them talk about the event and promote the event and bring people from all different communities in to work towards a common goal. We've got a lot of really great brands here that we use out in the field when we're out hunting, and it's really great to see these brands investing more time and funding towards conservation and stewardship, and we are so excited to have companies like Savage and Seek Outside and Onyx and all of these other hunting brands that are willing to really put some time and funds into helping us achieve our stewardship mission.
We're all passionate as hunters and anglers about the sport and about the wildlife, and particularly about public lands. And so to be able to provide a real definitive project, get like minds together, help the government agencies that need help to accomplish these lofty goals is really important. And you can see it with the turnout, where people are coming from. The vibe last night and the vibe today is spectacular because people are really rallying around that in Gunnison County and really all over the West, and it's really special to be a part of backcountry hunters and anglers being a driving force for these kind of projects.
Today was really awesome. We went out to Hartman Rocks and pulled about 2 miles of barbed wire fence off of public lands, and we just had an absolute blast. It was a beautiful day, sunny, 70 degrees, slight breeze.
So we took a lot of that fence down today and wrapped it up, and I believe it's going to go to another organization here locally to be turned into something else, which is super awesome. We love sustainability and reusing everything, so that's great.
I think collectively got probably several miles of fence pulled out this morning. So that felt really good to do. And then now we're back here for the evening celebration with sweepstakes, giveaways, live music, more food. So it's going to be a really good time.
We pulled almost exactly 5 miles of fencing today. We came up about 200 yards shy. They were trying to beat the weather, crack of lightning, everybody ran. So we got 200 yards yet to go out of 5 miles, but a real accomplishment for this group today.
Certainly over the last 2 to 5 years, there's been a lot of momentum towards conservation projects here locally, and taking down fences is just one example of many where we can really benefit and leverage our efforts through conservation groups and volunteers.
There's a lot of ways that people can get involved in this type of work, and as volunteers, we're always looking for more hands. And so going on to the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers website, you'll see events for your state, and there's likely going to be some stewardship events in there. If you are passionate about hunting and angling and conservation, we're always looking for more chapter leaders as well, and people that want to host these events themselves and mobilize volunteers and reach our members to get more people out to participate in stewardship and conservation. And just like reaching out to your local organizations as well, because there's a lot of organizations in these towns that are doing a lot of really great stewardship work.